A nonprofit says the prevention efforts to curb human and sex trafficking during the draft was successful. Our Emily Byer shares the details after going through the organization funding report.
Her Alliance, formerly known as Awaken, is a resource for victims of human and sex trafficking. They do this every day in our community. But in the months leading up to the NFL draft, they focused on community awareness to help folks spot the signs of exploitation. The nonprofit was able to serve 10 victims, ranging in ages from 17 to 46 years old. For comparison, on average, Her Alliance serves roughly 5 women and girls a month. Earlier this year, the Brown County Board awarded $20,000 to Her Alliance. Those funds went towards prevention ahead of the draft and making sure they were staffed around the clock during the event. Between January and April, Her Alliance held 20 educational presentations to community members with the tools to identify and respond to exploitation. The executive director tells us there were compliance checks and sting operations that helped recover some of these victims. She says the draft was a success for them thanks to that critical funding and the collaboration with authorities.
To know our county supported us financially, our community really were the boots on the ground spreading awareness and education on this. And then at a state level, we had the support of numerous nonprofits. And so to see us all come together with an aligned mission and vision to protect this community, especially with the exploitation of sex trafficking and human trafficking in general, that was powerful to see.
Her Alliance is already in talks with organizations in Pittsburgh, the next host of the NFL draft, to help them prevent human and sex trafficking in their community. We'll send it back to you.